Welcome to another episode of It's a Long Road, the Rambo series podcast. In fact, this is season 2 premiere, episode 1, because now we're covering Rambo First Blood Part 2. And with me today, I have a very special guest, one of my favorite podcasters. I'm going to say it right now, Jack, you're one of my favorite podcasters, the host of the Drunk Bond podcast. Jack, how you doing?
Ryan, good to hear from you. Good to see you. How are you?
Doing good. Dude, you cracked me up.
You tell everyone that?
Do I tell what, everyone?
You're their favorite one of their favorite podcasters?
Well, yeah, every third podcaster. It's like it's like a random wheel. Whoever's on next, I'll just every third podcaster. Yeah.
Any compliment I can get, I'll accept.
You of course host the Drunk Bond podcast, and you're part of the Last of the Action Heroes podcast network. If you're a James Bond fan, you definitely have to listen to this show. If you're not a James Bond fan and you're a Rocky and or Sly fan, which I would imagine people might be listening to this episode of Rambo. Well, you never know, right? So if you're a Rambo fan, you're probably a Sly fan. If you're a Sly fan, well, you guys also cover the Rocky films on your podcast show, so you can also check those out as well. They're hilarious. Your guys' breakdown of the Rocky franchise was spot on. It was great. You're fans of the movies. You were never disrespectful, but you were irreverent, which I love. Great combination.
Appreciate it. Yeah, I love doing the Rocky ones. Those were so easy. Compared to, Bond is pretty similar with all 25 movies, so to do something different for a little while was kind of nice. Those are a piece of cake.
Well, that's how I feel sometimes doing Rocky, is that I love it, and I'm tired of it, but I never want to be disingenuous or feel like I'm just doing something, because the paycheck's very big with our podcast network. We get a lot of money from
Tell me about it, man.
From ad revenue and what. I think you just went on your last vacation from the ad revenue from our shows.
I did, and I had some left over. So Daddy's in furs right now.
Okay, well, so I was just going to say, with the Rocky franchise, I love talking about it, but I remember when I started doing this Rambo franchise podcast, I got very excited because it was just new, something different, right? And it feels good to talk about Rambo. I've had some great podcast guest hosts, and yeah, here we go. You were now doing First Blood Part 2, so I want to hear from you, Jack. What is your history of Sly and or the Rambo films, and this film in particular?
With Sly, I think we talked about it a bit on the last episode I did with you, Chuck Norris, Invasion USA. I watched it a couple years ago again, and then I watched it recently. It's an excellent movie, and then I watched all the other ones, and that was more your straightforward action movie. And then a couple years ago, actually, I read the book, which I don't know. Have you ever read a book start to finish?
Have I ever read a book?
Oh, it's hard.
It is hard. You have to start and then you have to finish it. Yeah, I've read the whole thing. I've done that a couple times.
Yeah, all the way through. I was very happy with myself. And the book was even better than all the movies, I thought. With, what's his name? The sheriff, Treasel?
Oh, Will Teasel.
Treasel. Yeah, I was surprised how much they went into his character. Anyway, I'm not here to talk about the book, but the book was
that's
excellent.
Great.
That's my spiel on my history with Rambo.
Did you see First Blood Part 2 like most people first, or did you see First Blood first? Sorry if I missed that.
First Blood first.
Okay.
Yeah, which, by the way, have you tracked down who's in charge of the titles for all these movies?
Well, if it's anyone, it's Sly.
I got a bone to pick with him, because I'm very confused.
Well, yeah, I am too. So we have First Blood. Of course, now we're covering Rambo, First Blood Part 2, which it almost makes sense.
Yeah, almost.
Because you should call it First Blood Part 2 Rambo. That might make more sense.
First Blood Part 2 Rambo? I would have just thought First Blood Part 2. I don't know, man.
But then he corrects himself with the third one. I think the third one he kind of had to figure it out, sort of. But it's Rambo 3, which would lead one to believe if an alien race came down and rented Rambo 3 and they liked Rambo 3, they'd be like, I want to see.
That would be the first thing the aliens would do. Just go straight to the Rambo movies.
I would. If they did that, then they liked it, then they would be like, I want to go watch Rambo 1 and Rambo 2. They wouldn't find it. They would have a hard time finding Rambo 1 and Rambo 2.
Those aliens would be clueless. And I can't blame them. I'm confused, too. And then it was John Rambo or just Rambo for the fourth one?
Well, the fourth one was originally going to be called John Rambo, much like Rocky Balboa.
Rocky Balboa. Right.
But they ended up just calling it Rambo. Here's the thing. The aliens then would have thought Rambo was Rambo Part 1 if they watched Rambo 3 first, which gets very confusing.
Aliens would have said, fuck this, I'm going back on the ship. All right, can I curse on here?
Yes, please. Go ahead.
Okay.
Well, we'll talk about the film when the credits come out, because the credits will come up during our episode. and I do want to speak to a couple of the key members. But throughout, if you're listening to this season and you didn't listen to my First Blood coverage, I almost kind of get there are a lot of First Blood Part 2 fans out there, Vice First Blood, which is odd to me. But that being said, what we're going to do is I'm not going to break down like every minuscule moment per se, but there are some interesting characters at play that will be introduced in the credits at the honor episode that we'll talk about. But throughout the season, these names will come up. So don't expect this first episode to our listeners. You know, I get hundreds of emails a day, right? As you can imagine with the downloads, right? I get hundreds a day, and people are always saying, Ryan, you missed this, Ryan, you missed that. And I just want to let our listeners know that those things will be covered as the episodes go on throughout the season.
Had to get that PR out of the way.
Yeah, I know, because you got angry keyboard warriors ready to go.
I'm so glad you didn't have me on for the last episode of First Blood, because that's like an emotional, very sad scene with that speech and everything, and I would not have been the right person to have on for that one. So it worked out well.
That was our season finale. What do you want to speak to? Rambo's breakdown to Trauma? You can certainly express your feelings on it right now.
If the fans would have been listening for that episode, because that's where the movie all just comes together, you know, like why he's doing this. Your fans would have been just pissed that I was on. I probably would have made fun of Sly and not taken it seriously, and I wouldn't have been the right guy. That's all I'm saying. I'm glad I'm here and not there.
Okay, well, that's fair. It is an interesting scene. I always call it the Sly cry. He doesn't do it very often in his films.
Yeah.
It might be a reason he doesn't do the Sly cry very much. Go back and watch it, and I would recommend, if you do watch that scene, watch it with the subtitles on, because there's a lot of dialogue I guarantee you our listeners haven't heard before. Yeah,
about like the kid with the shoes, and it was a terrific scene. I mean, it was great and very sad, and just probably a lot of people experience, and especially with the Vietnam War experience when they got home. So yeah, I mean, it was well done.
All right, here we go. You ready? Oh, actually, before the movie starts, here's something you might find interesting. So First Blood in today's dollars, and I've heard this on a couple other podcasts. I don't think necessarily in our network, because our network doesn't get anything wrong. Inflation is important, because what inflation tells you is if a movie makes, let's say a movie makes $100 million in 1982, that represents how many tickets were sold. So if tickets sold for, the average ticket was, let's say, $2 a pop, that would tell you that's how many tickets represented with that inflation and ticket costs. I like to do inflation for current years. To give you an idea, in 2022, had this movie be released with approximately the same amount of tickets, what would its box office be? So then you can kind of measure it with other movies. So First Blood, in today's box office, would have made $300 million.
That's just domestic? Because back then they didn't really do overseas as much as...
Right, there wasn't the China box office. Yeah, I would say these older numbers are probably measured domestically, because I don't know how much they were.
That's impressive.
Yeah, $300 million, absolutely. That was First Blood, with like a $15 million budget, okay, which would have been about $40 million budget. So with a $40 million budget, a film makes $300 million. That's a good turnaround for today.
Yeah.
Now, here's something interesting. My brother Ruben, my original co-host on the Rocky Series podcast, he brought up a good point about sequels. When a sequel makes a lot of money, is it because the first film was really good and the word of mouth and all that stuff, and then everyone shows up to the sequel? Or is the sequel really good and everyone shows up because of word of mouth? Or is it a bit of both? Because I'm going to give you the number of First Blood. So we know the first film was amazing. Nobody knew it was amazing until almost it hit VHS, and they did that circuit in the VHS for 2 to 3 years, because this comes out 3 years after First Blood was released. So now we've got the word of mouth about First Blood. We've got all that circuit that has happened on VHS, and people are talking. The sequel comes out. Sequels are big. There's a big pop at the box office. What do you think the box office will be in today's money? What do you think the reason for the high box office would be in this situation? Keeping in mind, First Blood Part 1 was $300 million in today's ticket sales.
I don't know. I wasn't planning on doing math today.
No, sorry.
No, I guess it depends how good the first one was. I mean, you say that word of mouth came around, but I mean, if it was already making, what did it make, $300 million?
Yeah.
The first one, it was a huge hit. I think at that point, if Sly was as big a star now as he was then, because Rocky 3 came out in 82, that was First Blood.
Yeah.
Rocky 4, 85, and then First Blood Part 2. Yeah, so I mean, this guy's a superstar, like movie star. So I think there was just already a bump just from the name. Yeah, I don't know, man. I guess my answer is I don't know.
I didn't even put you on the spot that badly. I apologize.
Nothing to do with you. I was just a little slow.
Oh, it's okay. $750 to about $800 million in today's money.
Oh shit! Okay.
for Vietnam War film, POW film, and it only had like a $30 million budget. They only doubled the budget. Still a very small film as far as budget was concerned. Part 1 was fantastic. You're right about Sly's star was rising, absolutely. But you could also argue that Part 2, is it a better film than Part 1?
I don't think so.
Most people shouldn't think it is.
But I'm in the minority. I think this is the exact same kind of thing as Terminator. Everyone knows Terminator 2. Terminator 2 is awesome. Everyone kind of forgets Terminator 1. I personally like Terminator 1. I think it's just a masterpiece. And I feel this way about Rambo. Rambo, if you want like action, let's go, shoot 'em up, watch Rambo 2. But First Blood is like truly a solid film. I mean, it's great.
And I don't like comparing, because sometimes I feel like when you compare, it's like, do you like chocolate ice cream or the vanilla? Well, sure, maybe I'll eat chocolate over vanilla, but you give me vanilla ice cream, I'm going to eat it. It's irrelevant. Like, you're asking me to choose. And, of course, I love Part 2. And I love all the Rambo films. I'm going to make that clear right now. They all have flaws, and they all have things that are amazing and different about each one. And some are more fun to talk about because they're not as good. But Rambo 2, I think, for me, holds a special place in my heart, too, because I think it was... I can't recall if I saw it first or not. It was in that window. It came out when I was 10 years old. I was watching movies like Terminator, the first one. I was watching Conan. I was watching Mad Max. So I was watching all these films at a very young age. And so my parents probably rented First Blood before Part 2 came out, but it's so close together that I might have just seen one before the other. I don't even know. They're interchangeable, but I think Part 2 definitely, when you're 10, 12, 13 years old, you're a kid. Of course, it's the action-packed. It's the...
Oh, yeah.
A 10-year-old will like Rocky 4 more than the first Rocky.
Right, because when I first saw him in high school, Rambo 2 would be my answer. I think that's the better movie. Now... Of course. First Blood, no question.
Right. So it depends if it's a nostalgic reason or whatever. I doubt there's very many people who truly believe Part 2 is a better film than Part 1. But the fun factor, the enjoyment factor, the over-the-top factor, it's all in Part 2, which I love. It's so ridiculous and fun. I love this film. It almost is like they made this film and Part 1 never existed.
Right.
Or a little intro.
Little intro.
So right away we have that classic explosion, which if you're seeing this,
gotta have it.
You got. Sorry, if you're seeing this film cold, just going cold. Do you think right away? Oh, we're already at war. You're not even thinking prison camp, which I think it's actually kind of a clever way to open a film. Of we have an explosion. Number one, it's a real explosion. You actually have the debris of rocks falling onto the cast and crew below. But it's a great way to open the film because there's a part of you that thinks, oh, Rambo's already at war. Especially if you saw the trailers, you might think he's already at war. But of course, we're going to pan down that he's not at war. They're blasting rock in, I guess, a prison that breaks rocks. Are you familiar with this type of
work?
Yeah,
I've done some hard time before, but nothing like that. No, I'm not sure what the goal is here. Just banging down some rocks, and I mean, it looks like a mountain. Are they reshaping it? Looks like busy work.
Maybe this was the mountain that Rocky climbed in Part 4, and Drago has ordered it to be taken down.
You know what? You might be right there.
Now, what do you think of the police guard armament ratio to prisoner ratio? That's a pretty, these guys must be hardened criminals because these guards are loaded to the teeth.
Well, yeah, I think if you're doing that kind of time, I mean, these are some bad hombres. These guys are no joke. And Rambo, he's no exception. I mean, he just blow up a whole town and kill a cop, and let's not forget those dogs he killed. So I'm not going there unarmed.
That's very true. Very good point. Now, we should note that this took place... Sly loves doing this. He did it with the Rocky films, and he's doing it here with the Rambo film, by the way. So this is actually the events of Rambo Part 2. Can we just call it... What are we calling this? Are we calling this Rambo Part... Am I going to have to say Rambo First Blood Part 2 this whole season?
I hope not.
So in this second Rambo film, I don't know what to call it.
Rambo 2.
Okay. So in Rambo 2... I can't wait to get to Part 4 because I'm just going to be calling it Rambo. It's going to get so confusing.
Yeah, you can't say Rambo then. You got to say Rambo 4. You see, that's why you need to have the guy that was in charge of titles on your show and give him a good dressing down because this is ridiculous. Drunk?
I would love to get the guy that was in charge of these titles. I got a feeling I've been trying to get this guy for 6 years, and for 6 years he's been ducking me. Okay, so anyways, in Rambo 2, the events take place 3 years after the events of Rambo 1, First Blood. That is actually the same amount of time the film has taken place. So Sly like to do this in the Rocky and the Rambo films. It gets a little confusing with the ages, especially with the sons in the Rocky films, which you know about that when you listen to my other show. Here, 3 years have passed, so he's been doing rock labor, heavy labor for the last 3 years, which would explain. We're about to see later in the film. I don't think we'll see it in this part of the movie. We're going to see his incredible physique. Okay, Sly has totally, like, he's got that Rocky IV body right now. It's insane. It's probably the peak Sly body that he's ever been in. You know, in Conan, when Conan was doing that slave, he was chained to that wheel, and he's pushing that wheel for 20 years or whatever.
Right. That's how you keep it tight.
That's how he got huge. Well, that's what's happened to Sly here. Or sorry, not Sly.
And a high protein diet over there too.
Rambo! Let's go.
Now, I love how his jeans are still bloused like an army person there.
I don't like that they're not painted on like the old ones, though.
Now, I misunderstood when I first saw this film as a young lad. I used to think that he was in some sort of a prison, like, outside of America.
Oh, you did? Why'd you think that?
I don't know, because the whole movie takes place in Vietnam, so my brain just kind of went like, everything is not in America. I don't know why it took me forever to realize, well, this here it's an American prison. Where, I'm not sure it's being held, but...
How are you, Johnny? Good. That's all.
Eat it.
John, I'm sorry they sent you to such a hellhole.
I've seen worse.
Yeah, you have, haven't you?
So there you go. Some little gems, of course, about Rambo's past being the POW camps in Vietnam. Like, I've seen worse, I've been worse, which is true. He was probably treated a little bit worse in the Vietnamese prison war camps.
Yeah, it's like playtime. It's like recess.
He gets outside time. He doesn't have any... I don't think any of these guards shovel their feces to him for supper.
Was that a thing?
Yeah, that's what he was fed. When he was the Vietnamese prisoner, they would threw crap on him. Remember the sequence where they throw the stuff on him and the...
Oh, okay. That's what that was?
Yeah.
I usually have a good eye for that, but I didn't remember that.
John, I told you that I'd help you when I could. You interested? You can't possibly want to stay here for another 5 years.
So he has 3 years down, 5 to go. So it was just an 8-year sentence. What do you think of that? 8 years for what he did to that town?
What was he convicted of? I mean, Galt died. That's confirmed.
But it was probably manslaughter.
Yeah. I mean, and he said out loud, it wasn't my fault. So that's good enough for me. That's good enough for a jury.
Yeah, and he also said he didn't want to hurt anyone else. That was true.
Yeah, and those poor bastards that own that gas station and that gun store, maybe he apologized to them.
I think he did write a pretty heartfelt note in court. I'm sorry.
And I mentioned those 2 dogs he killed?
I think it was 4.
4? Okay, well, yeah. Well, then double that.
Yeah. Animal cruelty, that's probably pretty serious, actually. But you could argue it was self-defense, right? The dogs were attacking him.
I guess so. I mean, he probably had a good lawyer.
In here, at least I know where I stand.
So he's saying, I guess in the prison he might be, I don't know. What do you think? He's probably one of the top dogs there? Do you think anyone messes with Rambo in prison? If he's ever... I
mean, I know I wouldn't. I didn't see any guys there that could take him.
I bet you Rambo can freely drop the soap in prison, not worry about anything.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You don't drop the soap, but he can drop the soap anytime he wants.
Rambo, he can... Well, we see what he does in part 5. He can rip out your collarbone with his bare hands. So I would suspect that anyone tries to mess with Rambo, he's probably the king dog in the prison.
Yeah, maybe just best to just let him be.
Just hear me out first. The covert operation's being geared up in the Far East. Your name was dug out by the computer as one of 3 most able to complete the mission.
In 1985, I guess the Atari and the Commodore and home computers were starting to sort of become a thing. You could have a home computer in your home. This was a real novel idea, and I love how here Traum was saying the computer processed all this information about who's best for the job type thing, and you were one of 3 names that came up. I just like the idea that the human factor is eliminated from this. It was a computer that kind of decided what kind of algorithm did they put in. Look, this is the mission computer. These are the people available, past or present, that could do this mission, and somehow the computer figured out, well, Rambo's your best guy. That's what he's saying here.
Yeah, I think they had an app for that. They just typed in all the information and then just, boom, John Rambo. It's like, well, that was easy. That's right there. That's him.
It speaks to the 80s a little bit, because if this was seen, let's just say the same scene was written today, the conversation would have been, the top heads of state got together and we came up with you. Like, we talked as humans, and we decided, now we might have used a computer to find out who's available and where are they, but at the same time, it wasn't a computer that came to the decision. It was us taking the information from the computers, and we decided you were the best person for the job. But it's just funny how it was the computer that, like, it was some sort of...
Yeah. Should I have some headphones on? I've just realized I don't even have any on.
It wouldn't hurt.
That'd be for the best. Brought them, I might as well wear them. Okay, sorry about that.
No, it's fine. I edit all this. Is not live. The people that see it live...
We're on something called Discord.
It's live for them, but... they don't care. Some of them actually like seeing
what that is.
Actually, well, they watch us. They're talking right now. I know they're talking about us right now, and they're having conversations and
they're laughing, they're having a good time.
Well, yeah.
Mission?
Recon for POWs in Nam.
Why now? Why me?
The computer.
Prison camp you escaped from at 71's a target area. Nobody knows that terrain better than you do. The risk factor is very high. You'd be temporarily reinstated in the forces, and if the mission's successful, there may be a presidential pardon. You interested?
Yeah.
Good.
You know, he thought it over a little long there. He's basically saying, look, if you do this mission and it goes well, we can knock the last 5 years off your prison sentence. What's the worst case scenario? If the mission fails, and this is what I don't understand, if the mission fails, he doesn't get the pardon? He doesn't even get it for trying?
I guess they weren't really clear on that. I was mostly just like, clearly Rambo's got some issues with the war. He blew his top a couple years ago on a poor town up in Hope, Washington. What we're saying is, would you like to go back to Vietnam? And this isn't for vacay. Okay, you're locked and loaded, and you're going to kill about, I don't know, 400 people? What do you say, Johnny boy? Like, this is asking a lot.
Well, at this moment, Rambo doesn't think necessarily, or he wasn't told necessarily that it's going to be a firefight. He said it's a recon mission, which can lead to obviously to, but the idea of a recon, of course, is just surveillance. The little military knowledge that I have, I'm in the Navy, I'm not in the Army, but my understanding is a recon or recon is you're scouting, you're looking, you're seeing what's there. You'll engage the enemy if you have to, if you're under attack, but you're not to expose yourself. You're just looking around, getting information, coming back with that information. But you're right. I think there's a part of Rambo's like, you know what? I wouldn't mind going back to Nam. Sure, I had a good time there.
Yeah, screw it. Yeah, it was wonderful.
I'll get the necessary clearance. The next time we meet, it'll be in Thailand with the Special Ops designate who haunts the operation.
Yes, sir.
All clear?
Yes.
Now, I do like how he's turned on his military mode. I love it right now. He's yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's subtle, but I think it was purposeful that Rambo's now kind of turned it on. He's a soldier again, already in this moment. He's accepted the mission, and now he's responding to everything that the colonel's saying as, yes, sir, like, I've got it, understood.
Yeah, creature of habit. That was so key to both these movies, having that one ally, because he really is just a loner the whole time. And in both movies, he plays such a vital role. I mean, the first one to introduce the audience to who Rambo is. And this one, he's got one ally, at least one guy fighting for him. Otherwise, he'd be screwed.
Yeah. And then Colonel Trump's going to go on to say here, I tried to do what I could to get you out of here.
I want you to know that I did what I could to keep you out of here.
I know.
Not enough, clearly.
No, not enough, no.
Sir,
That's all right.
do we get the win this time?
This time it's up to you.
Now, I love this moment because there's two things happening here. There's the movie script sort of idea happening here, and then what we're supposed to believe would be a real conversation between the two characters. So you get what I'm saying? Is this a real thing that characters in this universe would actually say? So you get Rambo saying, do we get to win this time? Is he speaking about the Vietnam War, or is he speaking about the events of the first film?
Yeah, Vietnam War. Oh, yeah, the biggest shit show of all time.
if we say it's the Vietnam War, I want to say, slow your roll, Rambo. You're one person. The war is over. It's officially over. And you're going back to do a recon to see if there's any POWs. Great. That's a very noble mission. But there's no winning at this point. You can't really win. You can rescue the guys that are there. But I used to always think, and I still kind of do, I think they're almost speaking to the audience a little bit, because in the first film, Rambo, the character, and the way the script was written, he wasn't able to win. He wasn't allowed to win. His winning in that film would have been to destroy the whole town, to kill the cops, or what. Like, he wasn't allowed to go full Rambo, is what I'm getting at. So I think this is kind of a nod to the audience saying, hey, we were constrained a little bit with the events of the first film, to how it's written, but now we get to go full Rambo. Do we get to win this time? Do we actually get to go out and fight and do the things that Rambo was told that he can do in the first film? It's almost like the first film was a tease to what Rambo can actually do when he's given, go nuts, you can do it.
Yeah, I guess I always thought of it as they're talking about the Vietnam War, because he says, do we get to win this time? Not, do I get to win this time?
Good point. Yeah,
I guess if he was talking about First Blood, do I get to win? Not that, that's an odd thing to say, but I never thought of that. Yeah, I guess the first movie, though. But, yeah, I think it's for the audience, though, and just some 80s cheese to kind of...
I think you're right.
Yeah, that's a given.
That's true. In fact, I'm actually offering this show to you. I'm bowing
Thank
out.
I told you last time you could just take the day off. You have a lot of podcasts. I can just do all the shows for you for a while. Take a minute. They won't be good, but I'll do it.
No, it will be good. I'll listen. Put it that way. I'll listen for sure.
Appreciate it.
So I always took it as it was a wink to the audience, and I may be reading too much into it, but I kind of took it as a wink to the audience. Do we get to win this time? Because now we get to go full Rambo. Because Troutman's response was, this time it's up to you.
Loving it.
And here's the theme music to my podcast. I love it. I can't believe they stole the theme music from my podcast. I want to talk about George P. Cosmatos. He's the director of this film. Sly, as you know, or maybe you don't know, but a lot of our listeners might know this, Sly has the tendency to sort of find himself with directors that he can, I would say he can direct, but you don't direct Sly. And that's not a criticism so much as just the reality of who he is. Sly is Sly. He is the top, especially in 1985, he was the top dog. It'd be like telling, I know, it'd be telling like James Hetfield how to play guitar. Like at some point, the artist is just the artist. You don't tell these people how to play guitar, how to sing, or how do you really direct, like a producer of a Metallica is one of my favorite bands, so I use them. So like these guys have been doing it for almost 40 years. When you're a producer of a Metallica album, at some point they're just Metallica. You don't really tell them what to do anymore. You can give suggestions.
Right.
So I think Sly is kind of like that. Again, it's not a criticism, but I think it's just... And he would even tell you that his ego in the 80s was pretty high. Like, he has said that. So I'm not saying anything that he hasn't said. I'm saying all this because George P. Cosmatos was a very... Who? Who is he? He's a nobody director.
Who directed the first one?
Ted Kochev. They had successful careers and since they did other stuff. It's not Martin Scorsese. It's not Tarantino. It's not Steven Spielberg. There's certain directors that Sly, for whatever reason, never kind of worked with. But when he worked with guys like Mangold, who did, of course, Copland, or Coogler, who does Creed, when he actually works with directors who are these strong directors, probably with strong personalities, Sly will then turn a performance that exceeds what the audience would think he can do. This George P. Cosmatos guy, I wonder how much of it was him saying, okay, Sly, I want you to, or it was just, hey, he's the camera guy. His job is to take care of all the shots. But I wonder how much he actually directed Sly. I want you in this, as much as Sly is I've got it.
And Sly he had the formula down between Rocky. Of course, he directed all the Rocky sequels. Right. Who was a bigger star in the 80s than Stallone? I mean, he's the top 5 kind of guy. So it's I'm making money. We know what we're doing. I know the formula. We're not going to win any Oscars, but
we're going to make money.
We're achieving our own little mission here. Yeah, so let's not mess with the formula. And I think that's kind of how it went. It's kind of like Bill Jackson coaching Jordan. It's well, you can only do so much. Let's just give it to Jordan. He knows what he's doing.
I don't say it as a criticism so much as just that's my guess. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Maybe Sly was like, George, what do I do next? What do you suggest? Maybe he did that the whole time. I don't know. I'm just suspecting from what I know about movies and what this guy's career was like, not the George's career as director. He actually directed, again, I say directed, one of my favorite films of all time, top 5. If not my favorite Western of all time. He was actually the director of Tombstone.
Really? Why do you put director in? Are you implying that he didn't direct it?
I am implying, in fact, if you Google it right now, George P. Cosmatos, bless his heart, he actually died where I live in my city. I've mentioned that in one of my podcasts. He died here in Victoria, British Columbia. He ended up living here in his retirement years, and he died here. Rumor has it, well, it was rumor, but now it's been confirmed that Kurt Russell took over directing duties of Tombstone.
Really?
Yeah.
Wait, he died during the production?
No, he was alive and well during the whole production and release of Tombstone. It's just, he was just inadequate type director where Kurt Russell literally took over directing duties. You can Google that. Just Google in your own time. Not right now while we're recording. And to our listeners,
yeah, give me a minute. I need to look this up.
Oh, someone in our Discord just said that Unforgiven's better than Tombstone. Okay, we're not gonna do this right now. Okay, we're not gonna do this.
Neither here nor there.
It is neither, but I love Unforgiven. So anyways, it's like, Unforgiven's like First Blood, and then Tombstone's like First Blood Part 2. They're just two different types of films, but they're both amazing for what they are. Okay, anyways, all that being said, I find this all very interesting. So that's the director of this film. It is George P. Cosmatos. Maybe he had complete control. I'm just guessing he not. That was just my long-winded. I apologize. There we go. The confusing title.
I don't know who signed off on it.
Only one person. I won't say his name, but one person signed off on it. So yeah, we're just getting all the credits here, of course. So let me get this shot here, of course, of the American helicopter coming over the rice fields or whatever, and it's kind of like an homage to, of course, probably what these farmers saw in the war. You see all those films, those Vietnam films, of course, the helicopters flying over the farmers. Screenplay by Stallone and James Cameron.
Yeah, I saw that. That's the same. It's only one James Cameron, I guess. What the hell?
Yeah, it is the same James Cameron. I think we missed the name. It said story by Kevin Jarre. Okay, so Kevin Jarre was a young, up-and-comer screenwriter. Kevin Jarre actually also wrote, believe it or not, Tombstone. There's your Tombstone George P. Cosmatos connection. It is
all connects.
And Kevin Jarre wrote one of my favorite films of all time, actually. He also wrote Glory, the Civil War movie with Morgan Freeman and Matthew Broderick and Denzel Washington.
Oh, yeah.
Kevin Jarre is no slouch of a storyteller or writer, but he basically only kind of gets story credit for this film. His idea is that Rambo goes back to get the POWs out of Vietnam, which is a great idea. He had a story treatment, but he didn't write the screenplay. As we know, the screenplay I'm not trying to insult anybody here, but what a screenplay is, the screenplay itself is not just the story, but it's like the dialogue, the ins and outs, the character development, and all that kind of stuff. And so
correct, yeah.
The order of things was Kevin Jarre wrote the story treatment. James Cameron came in second to write the screenplay. And originally, Rambo had a side character, or a co-pilot, so to speak, partner. Did you know who that was? John Travolta.
I mean, fun facts. Hit me with it. Come on. Really?
Yeah. Can you imagine?
You fit right in. John Travolta in Vietnam. Great.
There'd be too many quips about staying alive in Vietnam.
These beaches are so sandy. Yeah, got that?
Yeah, thank you. James Cameron wanted to have a sidekick, and he also, believe it or not, this might surprise you, James Cameron, what he added to the screenplay and story was more action, over-the-top stuff, the same way he did for Aliens with the sequel to Alien Part 1. I love how Aliens was the sequel to Alien. Talk about confusing titles, right? Aliens was the sequel to Alien. So it wasn't called Alien Part 2. They just
I've actually never seen those movies.
Oh, boy. Okay. Well.
I know. Sorry.
Well, we'll fix that later.
Just throw me off for now?
Well, no. What we'll do is we'll have
edit that out.
No, we're going to get you on for Last of the Action Heroes podcast episode of one of those films is what we'll have to do with you. What I love about the Aliens movies, we're talking about weird sequel titles. Alien was called Alien. Part 2 was called Aliens, plural.
I never knew that.
And that would be like calling First Blood Part 2. If James Cameron got the title, it would just be called First Bloods.
First Bloods. That's catchy. It's a movie I gotta go and see.
So what he did to the script was he just made it more actiony, over the top. Then Sly comes in. So Sly, beautiful Sly, he comes in as the third guy on this film, says, okay, he actually really liked POW idea. He liked going back to Vietnam. He liked the idea that we're going to go over the top of the action. He respected James Cameron's ideas on that. And then Sly comes in and Slyifies it with the rest of the story. So the helicopter pulls in, dropping off Sly. I like how Sly's wearing his kind of like a civilian outfit. It's like this ragtag red shirt.
Timeless look, really.
He's got his jeans blouse still.
Are these the painted-on jeans that I was talking about?
I think so. Do his armpits hurt? His arms are kind of out. You notice that? Can't quite get them in. He's got that lat syndrome where you can't quite squeeze the arms to your side.
That pump is always with you. And I know, I think I saw some pictures on Rambo 3 when he was just lifting weights to always look. That look what you have like after you just work out, bigger than you actually are. They always just had that, so he like couldn't even move around.
It's like fluffing. It's like fluffing before the scene. He's fluffing himself.
Exactly. In there.
I like to do the same thing, before I take off my shirt for my wife, for special time. I like to, do a couple push-ups, and a couple of arm curls to make myself look, more manly.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, my wife and I have about 30 minutes of fluff time. Crucial.
That'll be all. How you doing, Rambo? I'm Erickson. Why don't we make it over to the hangar? You're the chosen one, huh?
No, that was Neo from The Matrix.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, we have here Martin Coe, the extremely now famous actor because of the Cobra Kai series and the Karate Kid series, playing a pretty small role in this film. And when this film did come out, of course, Karate Kid, oh boy. You think I'd do research on a film dedicated to the Rambo franchise or a podcast dedicated to the Rambo franchise. But Martin Coe, of course, was famous for the Karate Kid and, of course, Rambo First Blood Part 2. So he had a busy couple of years. But do you know him from anything else off the top of your head?
Oh, damn.
I don't think I do, to be honest
I don't
with
think so. Yeah, I don't think so.
He is extremely popular now. Like, I was on YouTube looking at Martin Cole videos, just like interviews and what have you. There were like 300,000, 400,000 views for like random interviews with Martin Cole, and he's got 1 million followers on Instagram. And I think it's the Cobra Kai series that put him in the stratosphere. I'd be interested to see what his numbers were like before that series came out.
Yeah, you've seen Cobra Kai?
I've just started watching it. Like
I heard it's excellent.
I've heard good things too, and I've heard it's really good without being campy per se. Like, I've heard it's actually just a good series.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
Yeah. Check out our next episode where we talk about Cobra Kai.
Cobra Kai, right?
You made a hell of a rep for yourself in Nam. Anyway, I'm glad to be working with you. This place may not be heaven, but at least you're out of the joint.
Now, I like how he's trying to make small talk with Rambo. He's saying, hey, you got a great reputation in Nam. At least you're out of prison. I also love Erickson's outfit. He's wearing, of course, sleeveless, sort of army jacket. But did he take the sleeves out and sew it himself, or do you think he took that jacket to his tailor to get done? Or?
Have some respect for the whatever they are, the Navy, the Army, the whatever.
Yeah, you gotta have some respect for the uniform. I agree. He's, again, the little that I know, being in the military, I know these, especially some time ago in the 80s too, like once you're kind of like out in the field or deployed or whatever, the standards sort of loosen up a little bit, because they lived there for so long, they're there for months at a time. But I think it's also just to show just how cool and casual he is. I think is the idea too. Like, look how cool he's got the gun. Well, did you see the gun there holstered to his chest?
Oh no, I didn't notice.
I don't know if that's easier to grab the gun up at your chest height.
I tell you, it's easy on the eyes. Looks good.
He's here. Morning, John.
Sir.
This is Marshal Murdoch. He's in charge of special operations from Washington.
Thank you, Colonel. Rambo, been looking forward to meeting you. How was your trip? No problems? Not except for the damn heat, right? Never felt anything like it. Come on in. Let's get down to business. I was glancing over your files.
Nice Coke placement there. Yeah, I love how Rambo actually glances at the Coke machine. Mm-hmm. That had to be intentional.
I mean, you got to cool off somehow. God bless the fine folks at Coca-Cola. They're a sponsor of ours, too, aren't they?
Oh, is it time for our Coke plug? Did you want to plug Coke?
Yeah. We got some big sponsors now. We've gone from like whorehouses, or my podcast anyway, to Coca-Cola.
Coke said if they wanted to come onto the last of the Action Heroes Podcast Network, they said that you would have to stop plugging the whore joints.
Well, okay. I'll think about it.
Okay. I love this character in the background here. This guy here with the sunglasses.
Classic.
He just screams douche, though. You can just tell, like, this guy is a dick.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I don't like that fella not one bit.
Very interesting reading.
So here's where Murdoch goes over his resume.
7647, Bowie, Arizona, of Indian German descent.
Now, here's interesting. So Rambo is part Native American. Did you know that?
I did not.
Indian German descent. He's from Arizona. He's born in 47.
Indian German. Okay, that's okay. Quite the combo.
Now, do you think it's East Indian or Native American?
That I can't speak for. I don't know.
Okay. All right.
But I would assume Native American.
Okay.
By the way he handles a knife.
He's from Bowie, Arizona, which is very convenient that he plays with the Bowie knife.
Uh-huh.
It's a hell of a combination.
Now, he says that's a hell of a combination. I don't think we're allowed to say that anymore.
Indian and German? Any combination.
Yeah, like that's what I mean. If somebody comes in and says, well, I'm half Korean, half Caucasian. Oh, that's a hell of a combination.
I'm half black, half white. What a hell of a combination.
How did that happen? Explain that one.
Yeah, well, I don't know.
Joined the Army age
Couldn't tell you.
664, accepted Special Forces specialization, light weapons. Cross-trained as medic, helicopter and language qualified, 59 confirmed kills, 2
I love how he says he specialized in light weapons. There's no mention of heavy weapons, which is very admirable considering that Rambo handled that M60 very well in the first film. So the fact that he's not a specialist, imagine how good he would have been with that gun had he been a specialist with heavy weapons.
He might have majored in light weapons. It kind of got his minor in heavy weapons, because I think he handled it okay.
I think he handled it very well. But he specializes in light weapons, but he does fairly well with heavy ones too, especially in part 4.
59 kills?
59 confirmed kills. How did they confirm that, I wonder? That was me. I got that guy.
Yeah, did you have to write that down? Like, that's mine. It says I'm about to triple that number.
Wait till part 4.
Yeah. Have you seen MacGruber?
I know the premise and but
It's such an underrated comedy, but
I've heard.
Yeah, they find him in a monastery at the beginning, and it's like a Rambo thing. And they list out all of his accomplishments, and it's ridiculous. It's 45 Purple Hearts, 6 Silver Stars, the winner of 2 Congressional Medal of Honors, and the starting tight end for the University of Texas El Paso. And it just always reminds me of this scene.
That's probably where they got it from. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, this movie's been parodied a few times.
4 bronze, 4 Purple Hearts, Distinguished Service Cross, and Medal of Honor. You got around, didn't you?
This, of course, is just to show you this bureaucratic BS / the lack of respect this guy's showing Rambo. Oh, you got around, didn't you? We get that it's played up, but we should speak to it because that's how he is. You got a guy in front of you here who's agreed to do the mission, number 1. And number 2, that is a real strong resume. You should, you're working with him. You should just say, hey, wow, we really appreciate you being here. Resume speaks for itself, and we know that you're going to give us your best, or whatever kind of pep talk, but he just says, oh, you've been around, haven't you? It's very glib.
Yeah, perhaps show a tiny bit more respect than he's showing. So he didn't serve anywhere, is that right?
He talks about it right here, and I'm a little confused about his service, but he does talk about it right here. So I think he does have military service, but he's civilian now,
okay.
And this often that happens, like you'll do military work, and then you become a contractor, the civilian side of the military. I think he says right here his little work that he's done.
Incredible. Rambo, you're probably aware that there's almost 2,500 Americans still missing in action in Southeast Asia. Now, most of these boys are presumed killed, but to the League of Families, Congress, and lots of Americans, it's still a very emotional issue. Give me something cold, please. Rambo, you certainly don't know as much about me as I do you. I hunched with the 2nd Battalion, 3rd Marines in Khartoum in '66. I lost a lot of good men.
So he goes, I hunched, and I don't know what that means.
I was too busy looking at the Coke product placement. I couldn't figure it out.
Well, he says I hunched with these. And he goes, I lost a lot of good men. So either he was a military member himself during this time, or he also was in charge of them the way he is here, right? But he wasn't military. So he still lost men. So either way, he's worked with the military.
Yeah. Now, I know this might be like another episode, but doesn't he say squadron or whatever didn't even exist? I mean, basically, he's lying. Like whenever Rambo's about to board the plane. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
So I know what you and every vet feels now. Maybe the government didn't care. Maybe certain segments of the population didn't care. My committee cares.
So what his committee needs?
Yeah. So I think he's part of some sort of committee, civilian committee that handles the intelligence side of things. Because he says, I know how you and the vets feel when you lose men. And Rambo's like, no. Have you ever tried to put the guts of your committee inside of their stomach after the legs all over me, bleeding everywhere? Come on. He doesn't know how it feels.
So he's a bureaucrat, basically. Yeah. But he did serve? I'm a little confused.
I think just like he is here. I think he's just inserted into these missions. So he's called a committee. So what his committee needs, Trump was about to say here,
that Americans are being held.
And once done, rest assured we'll get our men back. Now, if there's any of our men at this POW target camp, you're to confirm their presence by taking photographs.
Photographs?
Just photographs. Under no circumstances are you to engage the enemy.
Gee, I wonder if that's a foreshadow.
Yeah. I'm not much of a photographer. engaging is kind of it's kind of what I do, Major.
Did you not just read my resume?
Did you see my last movie?
I didn't take a lot of photos in that Hope, Washington. I wasn't there. I wasn't sightseeing.
Not a one photo I took.
Oh, man. I love how he's here to take photographs. You would think the guy that flies the helicopter later in the film, they could have just thrown anybody in that cockpit and taken photos as well. Like, I love how... I don't want to get ahead of the film, but anyway.
Yeah, it really could be anybody. I'm not sure if Rambo needs to be doing all this stuff.
Later in the film, he flies in parachutes to where he's supposed to go, and he finds these prisoners and tries to rescue them. The helicopter comes to pick him up. Like, why couldn't that same helicopter travel that same amount of distance and just take pictures of the camp?
They know where it is. They gave him the map. I don't want to tell them how to run their business, but come on.
I think the next few Rambo films after First Blood might have plot holes. We should probably just prepare ourselves for that.
No, don't tell me this.
I'm supposed to leave him there? I repeat, do not engage the enemy. The Phase 2 Delta Force assault team led by Colonel Troutman will handle the extraction.
Okay, so this is very telling. So I love how they've called in Rambo to take pictures. That's it. Great. If these POWs exist, Colonel Troutman's going to lead an extraction team, a Delta Force extraction team. I think Chuck Norris is part of that Delta Force team, is he not?
I hope so. Now, that's a sequel I'd want to see. But would Rambo be part of that mission as well?
That's what I don't understand, because he's actually been reinstated by the Army. So he's officially working for the Army, I think he's back in. I think he's getting his pension and everything. He's told that he can take photos, but he can't engage the enemy. Yeah, Colonel Troutman, in an alternate universe, Colonel Troutman is leading... That'd be a fun movie in itself, but it would be weird why they wouldn't hire Rambo as part of it. They should have said, hey, if you find the photographs, then you, with Troutman, with other members, will go get those guys. And I think that would have made Rambo happy. Like, oh, okay, I'll take photos, get the evidence I need, then I'll come back with Colonel Troutman, and we'll go get him. I don't know why they
that's a movie.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's odd, but I mean, it's just, I guess, we know why. It's an excuse to get him there, but...
They're castrating Rambo is what they're doing. They're basically saying, it's like taking a dog and letting them smell the meat, and you have them on this leash, and it's like, you can look at the meat, but there's no way you're allowed to eat that meat. You know, for Rambo, killing Vietnamese people, that's all he wants to do.
Yeah, it's like, it's just so easy. I can do it. Let me.
Okay.
I think he's lying.
Anyway, I'd just like to say that I feel with your participation, this mission has a better than average chance to succeed where others will fail. I'll meet you both in the operations center in 1 hour.
I love how he says, with your participation, we have a better than average chance. This is John Rambo.
Yeah, it's inspirational speeches like that really keep me going. Major, thank you so much.
Right now, I'm working with the recruits in the military, so I'm teaching basically basic training. I'm doing basic training exercises with the recruits and stuff. So what I might do with the recruits, I might say, with this next mission, guys, with you guys, we might have a better than average chance of doing it. I think it's a good way of inspiring the troops.
Maybe.
Yeah,
that'll really fire them up.
And then I'll carry my own phone on me with the soundtrack with that doo-doo. That would really, I love it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Speaking of which, I'm really happy they got Jerry Goldsmith again for the sequel. That makes me happy.
That's the same guy, right?
Yeah.
His score in the first one, it reminded me of... I couldn't, put my finger on what it reminded me of. Like an old mystery horror kind of thing. It was like a weird... It's not a normal sounding score. It sounded odd in some places.
Yeah.
Odd in a good way.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's unique. And I don't know what that sound is.
You ever seen, North by Northwest, Hitchcock movie? It kind of sounded like this, boom, 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 all these weird... Reminded me of that for some reason.
Send me an email at Rambo Series Podcast. That is Rambo Series Podcast at gmail.com. First, let me know how amazing my show is. And second, let me know what instruments are being played here, because I don't understand what that sound is. It's an interesting...
Send me a letter about it, too.
Yeah, send one to Jack, too.
Thailand across Laos into the mountains of Vietnam.
Okay, so what we'll do is we'll stop there. That's a natural place to stop. So Rambo's just looked at the map. He's visually sighted where he's going to go, and Troutman's going to talk to him more about the mission at hand that's coming up. What a fun intro to this film. It sets it up pretty quickly. They don't really waste any time, really, with this film.
Yeah, well, it's only 90 minutes or something, 90-something minutes?
Well, with the credits, it's an hour 36. It's actually longer than First Blood.
Damn. Yeah, I was surprised how short First Blood was. They get to it on First Blood, too. I mean, they just boom, let's go.
Yeah. Yeah, and they do that here as well. I don't think any of the Rambo films really drag it out.
No, not at all.
What do you think, Jack? How was your first time on the show and Rambo First Blood Part 2? Are you excited to see how this journey ends with the other episodes?
Oh, Ryan, I am so excited. I'm assuming that he goes to Vietnam, everything goes well, he finds love and comes back home?
He does find love. Don't spoil it.
Okay. So that's just a hunch I had.
Oh, okay.
And then, like, he takes the pictures and comes home, right? Nice and easy.
You know that necklace he wears from Co? I love how he puts the necklace on, and it's just like it's like so tight on his neck. I don't know.
Well, yeah, he's got that steroid neck.
I love this film.
It's a good time.
Our laughter and our poking fun and poking holes in the film is not a lack of how much I love this film. First Blood is a A+ film, amazing film. It's a perfect film, but this film is just a different beast. The easiest way to describe it, sequels did this back then. It was weird. First Blood and First Blood Part 2, totally different films for whatever reason, but both are good for different reasons. T1, T2, same idea. Like T2 is an amazing film, but it's nothing like the first one, Alien and Aliens.
Yeah.
Actually, I have a theory here. Everything I just mentioned had James Cameron involved, so maybe he's the one that does this. I don't know.
Maybe so. He's the constant in all this. But yeah, those two franchises, Terminator, I haven't seen Alien, but Terminator and Rambo, they're very similar. First movie versus second movie. And maybe that's why they're so successful. They do something completely different in each movie.
So, Jack, it was an absolute pleasure and honor having you on the show. Kicking off season 2, I hope to have you on again before the 5 films are over. But before we go, I want you to, of course, plug your podcast and explain what your show's all about.
Oh, let me tell you something. It's a wonderful show where I have a couple cocktails and I stumble into either my library or my closet and talk about a Bond movie for about 4 hours. And then after editing out all the stuff that doesn't make sense, you get about 45 minutes, 50 minutes of ranting about a Bond movie.
You do a great job. Your humor is so much fun, and I enjoy your podcast. I'm not even a James Bond. I've seen all the James Bond films. I think it's like one of those things for me where I've seen every James Bond film. I really need to go back and watch them again, then re-listen to your show, because obviously it makes some of the jokes or references even more funny. But I will just say, I don't want to oversell you too much, Jack, but you make me laugh, and it's hard to make me laugh.
Appreciate it, man.
I don't mean that as a... I'm a hard laugh. Like, I don't just laugh like a moron at stuff, you know? So you say some very good things and very funny things. A disclaimer, it's not PG-13 compared to mine. So just a fair warning to people.
A little more adult.
I just want to make that disclaimer that if you listen to Jack's show, it's just don't go from Ryan's recommendation expecting the same PG-13. But it's fun. But that could be a selling point too, right? It's a lot of fun. Well, that's it. The episode is over.
And nothing is over. And nothing... You just don't turn it off. How was that? That's a pretty good Sly impression, huh?
Yeah, Sly, is that you?
Just like him.
Can I interview you now? I've been meaning to interview you.
It's like it's like you had him on your show.
All right, brother. Thank you so much. Thanks for joining me, and thanks, guys, for joining us in the Discord. We appreciate it. Okay.
Appreciate it, Ryan.
Yeah, all right. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks, everyone. We'll talk to you later.
Take care, man.